Hi, and welcome to our first and inaugural online monthly training with myself, Dr. Paul Meschino. Welcome, everybody. We're going to discuss how to live your best life tonight, and throughout these events that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing monthly Facebook events, Facebook Live events that will discuss a variety of important subjects and topics on how to live your best life. So we'll be taking some big subjects, and I want to break them down to very simple principles so that we can take these nuggets of precious. Oh, everybody's online. This is awesome, and we can take these precious nuggets and apply them to your life right away. So bear with me. This is my very first Facebook Live event, so I want to welcome everybody. And don't mind me, I'm going to be looking at my iPad here to see who's online and who's following. And if you have any comments or questions, by all means, write to me, and I'll be sure to answer your questions as we go along tonight. So welcome, everybody. I'm very excited, inspired to do this tonight, very inspired. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I put a little bio of myself on the Facebook page. If you want to go there, all about me, you can download that, take a look at that. But basically, for those of you who don't know me, I've been sharing principles and skills to enhance people's lives through my chiropractic practice, through my one-on-one consulting, and through my my live trainings. And over the past 30 years, I have a bit of experience in this area. And so what I like to do now is I like to bring my services online so that I can reach more people. That's why I'm doing this. So I want to welcome everybody tonight, and I see Rick is here, and I've seen a few other people that are online. I want to welcome everybody. It's great to see everybody, and well, not see everybody or hear everybody or see everybody on my screen. So this is awesome. Thank you for joining me. Okay, so basically, as I said, that's my my sort of history. You can read my bio, but basically I can summarize it by saying to you that what I do in my practice and in my live trainings and in my consulting is I try to help people change the circumstances of their lives by transforming the inner workings of their mind or their psyche. And you may have challenges in your life, you may have problems or issues that are holding you back from living your best life. And the principles which I share can help you break through that in most cases. Say, for instance, if you have some health issues, it can help with that. If you have relationship issues with your spouse or your parents or your siblings or your children, I can definitely share with you information that will help you with that. Also, if you want to increase your standard of living by increasing your financial picture or increasing getting a better career, that type of thing, these are things that these principles can help with. And I want to also let you know that I'm a science guy, so that the principles I'm going to share are the principles that are tried, tested, and true. Not only in my experience, but also in the sense that I'm going to share with you things that actually work, that are scientifically valid, and things that don't work. So you're not wasting your time on things that don't work. I want you to focus on things that work so you get the results that you're looking for. Okay, that being said, I can't help everybody, okay? I work best with people who meet 3 qualifications. 1, that they're interested in discovering more about their life, more about themselves, how they function, what makes them tick. Number 2, they're open to perceiving life differently or open to new perceptions of life, new levels of consciousness, new behaviors. 3, that they are, let's say, have an intuition or a knowing that underneath it all, the power of appreciation and gratitude and love are very powerful healers for them. So if you share those 3 qualifications, I'm certain and confident I can help you, and the principles that I'm sharing are going to be of benefit to you. Okay, now let's get to the topic at hand. How to live your best life. Basically, we're going to discuss tonight how to add years to your life and life to your years. What is the one thing you can do right now to add up to 10 years to your life and life to your years that's relatively simple to do? It's easy to focus on. You can start right away. It doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free. What is that one thing that you could do? Okay, drum roll please. Here we go. So basically, I'm going to answer it by asking you 4 questions. And I want you to take your time on this And I want you to think about the answers to these 4 questions, okay? From a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to look at your life and answer them based on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest, okay? And I'm going to read these questions. So I have my notes beside me. The first question is, overall, how satisfied are you with your life nowadays? Scale of 1 to 10. Things are okay, things are working well, that's a 5, okay? If things are like you're drudging through the day, you're not satisfied with it, you're not satisfied with your life, things are hard for you, that's like low, like 1, 2, 3, etc. If things are awesome for you, you're feeling inspired every day, that's a 10, right? So I want you to take your time and I want you to look at where you lie on that scale from 1 to 10. The question is, how satisfied are you with your life nowadays? Okay. So once you have that, the second question, overall, to what extent do you feel things you do in your life are worthwhile? To what extent do you think the things that you do in your life are worthwhile? Do you wake up and you're totally inspired about everything you do that day? That's a 10. I feel awesome. Or are you drudging through the day? You're just trying to survive. That's a low, 1 or 2, right? Or if things are mediocre, that's a 10. That's a 5, I should say, okay? So I want you to scale yourself from 1 to 10 based on that. Okay. 3, overall, how happy did you feel yesterday? That was Monday. How happy did you feel yesterday? 1 to 10. The fourth question is, okay, overall, how anxious did you feel yesterday? That was Monday again. From a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious did you feel yesterday? Okay. And you can share if you want. You don't have to share. It's up to you. But what I'd like to have you do is look at your answers. And if you scored low in the first 3 questions and high in the last question, then you need some help. Okay? The principles which I'm going to share are a starting point for you to get you some help going forward. If you scored a 5 across the board, then you're, I would say, mediocre. These life enhancement principles are going to help you get a better life. If you scored high in level 1 and questions 1 to 3 and low in question 4, then you're doing quite well. And these principles can only enhance what you're doing. So what am I getting at here? Well, these questions I just asked you are sample questions of a battery of questions that clinicians and researchers ask people to get an idea of their internal sense of well-being inside them. Because their internal sense of well-being is what determines and what has a major impact on your longevity and quality of life. It's the one thing that you can focus on right now that will improve your life and give you up to 10 years extra to your life and improve the quality of your life. It's the one thing that's easiest to focus on, in a way. Now, what do I mean by well-being? Okay, so well-being, that means how good you feel and how well you're functioning. People ask you, how's it going? Right? How's it going? How's what going? How's your life going? And out of the pleasantries we say, it's going fine. But if you were to make a true, authentic assessment of how well you're doing, how good you feel about your life, that's your internal sense of well-being. It's a subjective assessment of where you're at. That's vital for you. Because how good you feel and how well you function plays a major role in your longevity and quality of life. In fact, it's just as impactful as having a good diet is. And having a good diet is a major role, plays a major role in your health and your longevity of life. This plays just as major a factor as your diet does. And it's more accessible, I think, and quicker to change. Okay, so what I like about focusing on your internal sense of well-being is that there's some major research to show how well it impacts your life. Not only does it add years to your life. Hi, Alice. Alice is there. I'm just seeing some people pop up, so I'm just saying hi to everybody. It has a major impact on your longevity of life. It boosts your immune system. And so if you're fighting a sickness or an illness or your wound healing, it actually enhances your ability to fight infections and wound heal. It also prevents against illnesses such as colds and flus. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling stressed is when the time I get colds and flus. But if I'm feeling things are really good inside me and I'm feeling good and functioning well, you could sneeze on me, cough on me, it doesn't matter. I'm not getting sick because I feel so good on the inside, nothing can affect me from the outside. The research is now confirming that. It also enhances your ability to make more constructive lifestyle choices for yourself. For instance, people who have a good sense of well-being choose a better diet, they maintain normal body weight, they are less likely to use drugs or alcohol or smoke. It's also been shown that it influences your mental health, so you're less likely to have depression, anxiety, and it's contagious. One study showed that if a near friend of yours has a good sense of well-being, you have a 63% chance of having a good sense of well-being as well. It's contagious within families. Family members rub off on each other, even if they're not living together. So it has a major impact on people's mental health. If you and your children have a good, strong sense of well-being, your children are more likely to have a higher education, be employed, and have strong marriages. Crime rates go down when people's society's good sense of well-being increases. We look at the country of Bhutan. Bhutan is in Asia, and as compared to our countries where we measure our success of our countries based on economic growth, it's called GDP, gross national product. They measure their success of their country based on gross national happiness. And that's a measure of the internal well-being of each person, the sense of well-being of each person in the society. They actually survey that. And that's their source by which they make policies from. It's amazing. And what they have is very high standards of sense of well-being for people and very low crime rates. Now, some people say to me, well, the reason why this internal sense of well-being has a major impact on our health and our longevity is because we choose a healthier lifestyle. But that's not necessarily true. It works independent of anything else you do. So even if you don't change your diet, you don't exercise, you just enhance your internal sense of well-being, it can impact your longevity and quality of life without changing anything else. Now, if you want to change everything else, I'm happy that you're doing that too, okay? I want you to do that as well. But just by doing that alone can impact your quality of life and your longevity. And that's what I'm really concerned about for each person that I work with and for you is your sense of well-being. If we can focus on that, that's the first step. You may want to put the cart before the horse, as they say. Focus, if you want to improve your health, focus on your internal sense of well-being first, and the health will usually follow that because you make more constructive choices. You'll get into a better lifestyle as a result. Now, can you just snap your fingers and create an internal sense of well-being? Not really. It doesn't really work like that, okay? There are factors which determine your sense of well-being, and that's what I want to share with you tonight. Some of them are in your control, and some of them are actually out of your control. Things that are out of your control are things like the government, which rules us, the economic status of our economy, the natural environment which we live in. These are things that we have relatively little control over in a way. But there are factors, and for a large part of the internal sense of well-being, the factors which you have control over can make a dramatic improvement in your internal sense of well-being. And in fact, there's 4 scientifically validated factors which will improve your sense of well-being. They've been well researched by a neuropsychologist by the name of Richard Davidson. And he shares his results that are, I think, astounding. And these are skills you can develop. These are things that you can apply to your life right away that can enhance your internal sense of well-being and improve your quality and longevity of life. Help you heal, all those things I just mentioned. Boost your immune system, create more mental health for you, improve your family's health and well-being, etc. So I want to share these 4 factors with you. So the first one is what's called resilience. Okay, when something bad happens, how quickly do you recover from that? Well, some people recover quicker from bad things happening than other people. Scientists are now measuring the recovery time. If it takes, some people, it takes sort of hours to get over a bad event happening. Sometimes it takes days. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes decades. Sometimes it takes a whole lifetime for people to get over tragedies or specific bad events. If it takes you a long time to recover from adversity in your life, then you have a low resilience factor in your life. If you quickly respond and you recover quickly from bad events, then you have high resilience in your life. And I think that as I look through the research, Guy Winch, who's also a psychologist, shares a very poignant story, which I want to share with you, about a woman who was recently divorced. And what she's doing is she's now interested in dating. She's getting herself the courage to go out on dates. So she's recently divorced. She's just getting the courage to go out. She starts dating. And what she does, she finds a person who she's interested in. So she ends up going out with him. They go on a second date. And on the second date, what happens is the guy stands up in the middle of the date and says to her, "I'm just not interested." And he walks out on her. She feels the impact. She feels totally rejected. So what does she do? She calls a friend. And her friend says to her, "Well, no wonder he left, because your hips are too big. You're not smart enough. You can't carry on conversation." Ooh, what kind of friend is that? Well, in reality, there was no friend. Okay, this is what the internal dialogue inside her was doing. It's called rumination. I think everyone can identify with that. You've been in situations where you just feel that, and then you start going over all the negative components of what you just did and how you start internally criticizing yourself, and that's called rumination. That's the opposite of resilience. If you tend to ruminate, it takes you, days to get over it, or weeks, or months, or years, then you're ruminating over things. Now, she could have done the opposite. She could have said the opposite. She could have said, "That guy's an idiot. He's so inconsiderate. He's an asshole," that type of thing. "And why does this always happen to me in my life? Why do I always meet these guys that are like this? Why?" And she starts berating out there. She externally doing that. That's also called rumination, projected outwards. Okay? And if she still holds on to that over days, weeks, months, years, then she's ruminating and her resilience is really low. She's impacting your internal sense of well-being. Now, some people, when they come across these situations, they just get on with life. Just get on with it, the next thing. But if the subject comes up again, then they say to themselves, "Oh, that guy, he's like this," or they're actually reliving it as if they're hurt or they're angry. And this is years ago that this happened, but they still, if you jog their memory, they still feel the same way. That's a subjective or a subconscious ruminating over an event. Okay? That's also a rumination. What I'm looking for in resilience is a clarity. In other words, a clearing of the emotions around an event where it feels okay for you. You feel centered. You feel calm. It doesn't impact your emotional system anymore. That's when you know you're truly over that. And there are specific techniques and abilities and skills that you can use, that you can learn, that help your resilience go up and skyrocket. Okay? Now, there's been studies and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to share with you this. And actually, in our upcoming live events in August, I'm going through resilience more specifically. But there's been studies on this. And actually, Richard Davidson, who is the primary researcher in this area, looked at the impact of meditation on resilience, for instance. And people think, well, if I just meditate, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to do mindfulness meditation. But in fact, the research shows that it doesn't work. In fact, you need 6,000 to 7,000 hours of meditation to make a dent in your ability to become resilient. There are way better techniques, more effective techniques that I can share with you that can help you get through that. So the first factor that you want to focus on is increasing and enhancing your ability to become resilient through life's hard times. Okay? The second factor is called outlook. And what do I mean by outlook? It means savoring the goodness of life. And this is a fascinating subject. This is amazing research that's been just new by, again, Richard Davidson, where he finds that this is fascinating. And he's confirming sort of my other research that I've done and also my intuition. is that he says that across the board, 100%, through the scientific research, that he concludes that babies are born with an innate basic goodness, he calls it. In other words, if you test 6-month-year-olds and you give them a choice, they prefer to be good and prefer to want to be with people who exhibit basic or who exhibit innate goodness, innate basic goodness, as opposed to the opposite. So they want to be that and they want to resonate with that. Every baby he's ever tested across the board, he's done lots of experiments in all different ways to confirm, and he now concludes that everybody's born with an innate basic goodness. So the idea of outlook is to see and to focus on the innate basic goodness of each human being. Now that may be pretty controversial. I'm not saying to become a doormat to people's bad behavior. You need to put up barriers to bad behavior. I'm not saying to put up with bad behavior, but in a deeper way, understand that there's a seed of innate basic goodness in each person. This is important. So that's the idea of outlook. And it's shown that people who are clinically depressed, for instance, they can hold and get into that state, but it's hard for them to sustain it. So there are techniques and ways of becoming more synchronized with that outlook and actually sustaining it within your own consciousness. And that's going to boost your internal sense of well-being. So you want to start to focus on the seed of innate basic goodness in each human being that exists on this earth. Okay? The third factor is what's called being present. Pretty simple. But research out of Harvard shows now that we're only present. The average person is only present 50% of the time. The other 50%, they're not present. Now I think we can do better than that. Okay? Nonetheless, when you're not present, they did EEG studies. They found that people's emotions are dysphoric. In other words, they have a poor sense of internal well-being. Okay? So it impacts their well-being if you're not present. If you're present, if you're what's called in the flow, you're totally engrossed with what you're doing. It's called being in the flow. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who's a PhD psychologist, came up with the term in the flow. I think you understand that, where you're totally engrossed in something where you're in the groove, you're in the flow, you're in tune, you're on fire, these types of feelings. And you're engrossed in what you're doing for like 1 hour, but it feels like 1 minute. That's when you know you're in the flow and you're totally present with what you're doing. That's like rocket fuel for your internal sense of well-being. So you want to create more times where you're more present and in the flow. And there's actually, as I said, techniques and abilities and ways, skills that you can learn to keep yourself in the flow more for yourself that are scientifically researched and validated. And I'm going to share that with you in upcoming trainings. Okay, the fourth factor is what Richard Davidson calls generosity, but I'm going to call it being of service. I think that's a better term for it myself. That's just my own term. And because when you're in service for people, you're actually helping people and you're providing value to them, not only do you boost your internal sense of well-being, but you help them boost theirs. It works in a two-way street. So you want to find how you're valuable, how you value people, how you're valuable to people, and in return, how you're valuable to yourself. And again, there's specific ways to focus on doing that. So if you focus on the four things, if you focus on becoming more resilient, if you focus on the second one is outlook, savoring the goodness of each person, in the goodness of life. You focus on being present, and you focus on being of service. Then you're going to boost your immune system. Just by doing those four factors right now, you can start to focus on them. And if you have trouble with them, don't worry. I'm going to go through more specific ways and techniques and abilities how to create that, each one of them in your life more succinctly. And I think next time I'm going to be doing more about resilience. There's 5 steps to that. We'll be talking about that. So that's what I wanted to present tonight. I wanted to open up the floor. If there's any questions, I can kind of see things popping up on my screen. I sort of missed a few things. Hi, Cyrilla, I'm seeing you out there. If you have any questions at all, you can put them online and I can answer them. I can either go on Facebook and answer you back, or I can answer back now. But that's what I wanted to present. And if you have questions that you want to address more specifically with me one-on-one, we actually have a conversation. In 2 weeks from now, on Tuesday, July 24th, I'm going to be doing you're going to get an invite basically to a live conference call where I can actually listen to what you're saying. I can give you feedback. I can help you attain more of an internal sense of well-being. Just going to give you some advice right over the internet. And it's called a live coaching call. And you'll be receiving an invitation on that. So if there aren't any more questions, and if there are questions, I'll be looking to see whether I can't see any questions online, so to be in your video. Okay, cool. So hi Doris, I just saw you pop up there. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to help you live your best life. Me, Dr. Paul Meschino, and how long do you need to be in the flow? Great, thank you, Leslie. I got your question. So let's answer that. So how long do you need to be in the flow? As much as possible. So it's shown that in studies that the more you're in the flow, the more you're present with what you're doing, the more you increase your internal sense of well-being. Okay? And there's ways to help you sustain that flow. And the key thing is finding that flow in the first place. And there's ways to finding that. And I'm going to present a whole topic just based on the flow. We're going to go through a little diagram. I'm going to go through that with you, showing you how to do that in upcoming gatherings. Thanks, Ron, for the feedback. Any other questions for me? Any other comments or questions that you have online right now? I'm just looking for anything else to pop up. Great. Okay. So if you have any more questions, any more comments, I'll be looking online for them. I can answer you back. And I want to thank you, everybody, for being here tonight and watching for our very first inaugural one. There's more to come. You get an invite for the next one, and I'll give you the next topic after that, and we'll go from here. Live your best life. It's me, Dr. Meschino, over and out. Thank you.